I was going to say, I don't think I have had a local, a community thing that, didn't have the words Indwell in it. Personally, I'm not giving you my opinion, other than I had the somewhat displeasure of all spring and fall to have a sign that was put on my half of my property on the property line, and how that irritated me so much. But anyway, we're going to welcome a friend of mine, fellow skier, a great guy. He served me oatmeal at the table that we shared in the chalet. Okay, so that was John DeGroot, but I'm going to start with Heather. I want to tell you about Heather Martin. Heather is passionate about caring for seniors, and as the CEO of Vision 74 Inc., she is compelled to create the conditions needed for excellent and sustainable long-term and retirement care at Vision. She believes in empowering the team to use innovative and creative strategies to achieve high-quality care and enhance quality of life for the residents and families, staff, and volunteers. Working over the past 3 years with fellow Rotarians, John DeGroot, Michael Coy, and colleague Brian Munt, has led to learning from other communities on the challenges we are all facing with housing affordability or lack thereof, mental health, and addictions services. This journey continues as we welcome Indwell into Sarnia Lambton. John DeGroot was born and raised in Sarnia, a graduate of Michigan State University in horticulture. As he puts it, he looks after DeGroot's nurseries. John has a long history of community service, having served on many boards and committees. On the personal side, he has 2 sons. One is a nurse here at Blue Water Health, and one lives in Vancouver. John says that he's a lousy skier. Don't believe it. He's an enthusiastic skier. Okay. Anyway, and he's trying to retire or do a semi-retirement, but he's not having much luck at it. A warm welcome to Heather and John. Following the presentations, there will be some time for questions, and we certainly would like they're going to stay around after and enjoy some coffee with us and fellowship. That would be awesome too. So I invite you to come forth and lay it down.
Heather and I are thrilled to be here, and we wish that more faith communities would have the interest that you have in trying to deal with the plight of, affordable housing, supportive housing, and dealing with those who are vulnerable and disadvantaged in some way or another. We're going to give a little brief history of where we've gone to where we are. And the reason why we're doing that is because it's not a matter of one day a few years ago, Heather and I sitting there saying, hey, let's do this. It wasn't that simple. Anyway, and then we'll have a few minutes for questions and answers, hopefully. We, Heather and I, are 2 of 4 citizens just like you that are sort of advocates for solutions for better housing. It was about 3 years ago, a little more than 3 years ago, that Michael John, the third of the 4 of us, called Heather and I and said, hey, are we doing anything to deal with this stuff or this crisis? And if not, let's get on with it. Let's dive into this. Heather, as you were just introduced a few minutes ago, is the CEO of Vision Nursing Home and Rest Home. They recently built Wellington Flats, so there's some experience there. Wellington Flats is an apartment building with 50% market rent and 50% affordable housing, supported by the County of Lambton. I am an on-again, off-again member of the board of Vision Nursing Home. Michael John Coy is an RBC Dominion Securities financial advisor, interested in all things community. And coincidentally, the three of us are members of the Sarnia Rotary Club. And then Brian is the last. He's been on staff at Vision. He's not on staff anymore, but doesn't matter. He's still in town and works very close with us. He's a planner and a developer and a building project coordinator. He's the one with the brains. For the first few months, this is now just over 3 years ago, we educated ourselves. We quickly got a hold of Indwell. We had some history with Indwell, kind of familiar with what they're doing. And they really helped us with figuring out what were the right questions to ask and how to kind of move forward. When we talked to the city staff, when we talked to the mayor, CMHA, the Bob Bailey, Marilyn Gladue, Blue Water Health, and anybody that was connected with housing, we were involved, and we wanted to get there. And it's in spring of 2023, the County of Lambton and CMHA, Canadian Canadian Mental Health Association, put together a housing summit, right? And this was an invitation only, all-day event that invited all kinds of stakeholders to a meeting at Lambton College to discuss the housing issues. There was 100 or 150 people there. And we found a way to invite ourselves to that event. And we strategically sat with the right people to make sure that, well, hopefully we could make an impact. The summit was pretty much an opportunity for the county to say all that they're doing to address the housing issue. And then they didn't call it a crisis. And then CMHA got up with a session or two and telling everyone about all that they were doing to deal with the housing issue. And a few other agencies came forward, but all the other agencies were sort of represented there. The message at the summit kind of was, correct me if I'm wrong, Heather, we're seeing people on the streets living rough, yep, but we are doing so much, and we've got plans to do even more. And on the way out of the summit at 4 o'clock, when the summit was over, the four of us kind of huddled together and said, you know, nobody's doing anything, and nobody will. So we have a job to do. Countless meetings later with everybody we could think of. In spring of 2023, we went to City Hall to ask them to donate a piece of land on Victoria Street parking lot, donate it to the county for the purposes of affordable, supportive housing. We went to council, and that was supported unanimously by all council members. Sometimes council can act unanimously. Perhaps that was the last time. And around the same time, the county decided to put out an RFP, a request for proposal, asking for anybody, any agency, any business, any organization, or any nonprofit to build and operate an 18 to 24 unit building to house people who needed housing and who needed supports. They sent us a copy of the RFP. They also sent one to Indwell, and they sent one to anybody that they could think of. They got no responses. They got our response, which was formulated with the help of Indwell, and our response was really a non-response, and it said, way to go, you're on the right track, you're moving forward, but why did you not get any responses to your RFP? And maybe we should talk. Maybe we can work together on this. So we met with county staff, and they pretty much said, after we met with them, I hope nobody here is connected to. I mean, it's okay, it's fine. You know, we're building relationships. But our first 1 or 2 or 3 meetings with county was sort of like, you're in our way. Yeah, whatever. But we didn't leave. And then in July of 2023, to kind of show how serious we were on this and to kind of build some momentum, we put together, mostly Heather put together a breakfast extravaganza. And we did it at the same time as the Rotary Mackinac breakfast thing. We invited the right people. We invited the Indwell folks, of course. We invited several council members. We invited the mayor of St. Thomas. We invited the Minister of Housing and Municipal Affairs. We made about, which was expensive, we made about $100,000 on the event. It was big. Indwell, when they came, they saw what we were doing and they kind of got, I guess these people in Sarnia are serious. So a year after that we won that sort of victory from council regarding the Victoria Street parking lot, one of our most colorful city council members made a motion to take away that parking lot and give it back to the city, so renege on the promise. And that was passed, all right? We were disappointed, of course, but we were not deterred. Because in the meantime, over the last 18 months or so, we identified 40 to 45 potential spots or properties that could be considered for supportive housing. So we were on the right track. There was two other significant achievements that we made at that time. One was a motion that was made at County Council that went sort of like this: we will make housing our #1 priority. And that was moved and passed unanimously at County Council. So that was kind of big. And then the next achievement was County Council contracted Indwell, or Flourish, which is the development arm of Indwell, to come up with a game plan or a strategy as to where to put what kind of housing. And then a number of months later, the county committed Indwell to deliver and carry out the recommendations of that report. It was an exhaustive report, like it's a binder, right? We did another breakfast extravaganza in July of 2024. And then we began to cobble together, to put together a fundraising team to, because we knew that the community should probably commit about 10% of the capital cost of a building, that we should come up with that ourselves in the community. That's a healthier way to go. So that was sort of our journey up until a number of months ago. There's actually been a few questions, about like really who is Indwell and what do they do? Indwell had their beginning 50 years ago when an elderly couple just opened up their home. It was a big home in downtown Hamilton. They opened up their home to folks who just didn't have a home. And they grew and grew and grew, and I believe now they're in 7 or 8 communities in southwestern Ontario, probably 1,200, 1,300 housing units on, I'm guessing, sort of 20 apartment buildings or more. Their kind of typical goal, or their mainstay, or their traditional sort of thing that they try to look for is a 50-ish unit building with apartments on the upper floors, and the lower floor would be some offices, some interactive space, some kitchen, some gathering space. There might be a room that's sort of like this. And it would be staffed by probably 2 healthcare providers, perhaps nurses, a couple of social workers, and 1 or 2 kitchen staff, and 1 or 2 maintenance people. So that's 6 or 7 people on staff, right? So that's how we define supportive housing. It's housing with supports. Today, we in Sarnia Lambton have no supportive housing, according to, by this definition. Indwell also has homes that need less staff, and that's based on just simply the clientele or the people or the residents that live there, because their needs are not as great. But then they also have homes that need more staff, again, based on the residents' needs. St. Thomas has a home where there are 12 staff and 15 residents. So it's almost one-on-one. It's high acuity, we would call that. I call St. Thomas kind of like the poster child of Indwell. According to the folks in St. Thomas, as soon as Indwell opens up, the hospital emergency department needs go way down and drastically in visits. And as soon as Indwell opens up a home, the police calls to that target population dropped dramatically. Another question is that always comes up, how long can someone stay in an Indwell home? Is it transitional housing, like Chuck asked a little while ago? I have a neighbor, but doesn't matter where I live, I have a neighbor that lives 2 doors down from me. Their daughter lives in an Indwell home in Hamilton, and she is now in year 6. She loves it. She feels she probably should go to the next level of housing in order to free up her spot for another tenant who may need the spot more than her. She came to Indwell as a youngish post-teenager, probably 20-ish. She came to Indwell not being able to finish her post-secondary education because she just couldn't cope. Number of issues. COVID was extremely hard on her. And slowly now, COVID, after 3 or 4 years, 5 years, she's putting her life back together. She finished her schooling while she was in the Indwell home, and now she actually has a wonderful job at, I believe it's Waterloo University or else McMaster University. That's definitely a success story, and not all of, we're dealing with vulnerable population. They're not all success stories like that. So where are we now? Indwell's first building is going to be at 333 George Street, which is just over there, 3 or 4 blocks up the road here. That's next to the ambulance building on the corner of George and Mackenzie. The place is properly zoned. It's owned by the county. It's close to downtown, and it pretty much checks all the boxes of what Indwell really wants. Plans are actually drawn up, not detailed architectural plans, but yet in August 11, we had a public information meeting at City Hall. We also, a number of weeks and months before that, we actually had a meeting here with just an information sharing meeting. So that August day, we had a public information meeting at City Hall in the chambers. We had the expected number of neighbors who really had some misgivings about not necessarily Indwell, but about the location. What's the status of that project? Indwell is pretty much ready to go. There are 5 issues, and it's very typical of a building project. I believe there's 5 issues, Heather might have to help me on that one, that need to go to the Committee of Adjustment for relief regarding the site. One of them being the height of the building, another one is a side yard setback. We want to go from 10 feet to 7 feet. I can't remember exactly. And one being the size of the loading dock, easy to overcome. The other being a number of parking spots required. So that's a bit of a tough one. All the Indwell facilities that they have, they've convinced the town or the city to reduce their parking requirements because Indwell tenants don't have cars. There may be 1 or 2, but so all we really need is parking for staff and maybe a few visitors and et cetera, a few volunteers. But the building code, when you open up the building planning, I don't know exactly what that is, but it dictates, yes, for every unit, you need to have X number of parking spots. So that issue is now at city staff. We're dealing with it, and it's going to slate it to go to Committee of Adjustment in February. I think I'm going to leave it at that. I don't know, it's not too bad. If there's a question or 2 or 3, and if there's something we can answer, that would be great. Oh, look at that, wonderful. It's an easy topic. I thought it was nothing. And Heather's going to, good. So I can't, Wayne, was it your hand? Yeah.
I got an easy question. When do you expect to have people occupy the
Well, we were hoping for 3 years ago.
You can repeat the question.
Oh, right, we were going to repeat. Okay, when do we anticipate opening? Right? So I think we're kind of expecting, we're certainly expecting that we will break ground this year yet. And it's going to take a year to build.
So I just want to clarify, first and foremost, we are the volunteers. We do not work for Indwell or Flourish. So even though we have big ownership in how they came to be here in Sarnia, and accepted the invitation of the County of Lambton through us being facilitators. We are volunteers, so, because I know we own it, because we own it. We put on a lot of miles across southwestern Ontario during this 3 years, and so that's why the "we" is awfully pronounced. As far as on February 10th, I think it goes to council, and there were 5 questions, as John mentioned, and as far as I understand, they have, Indwell has a remediation response in order to comply with the bylaw requirements with some small adjustments. There is a change in the provincial requirements under the building code for the number of parking spaces, which really does open up flexibility that Indwell is the first applicant in Sarnia requesting concessions under the new Ontario building code. So there is room for movement there. Once the approval goes forward, it's about 6 months in order to get the drawings into City Hall for approval for the schematics, and then it goes to tender. So I think John's framework is probably right. We're probably about 2 years out still before we see a tenant move into any of the properties that they propose. There are several sites around the city. They're not just on George Street, and they're working, Indwell is working diligently with other community partners to advance at least 2 more projects. Their commitment, Indwell's commitment to come to Sarnia requires them to have about 150 units in order to justify the administrative responsibilities of running properties in a community. Every community that they've been in, the 8 communities that they are in now, every community has invited them back to do more. And where the poster child is St. Thomas, it will be the first community in Ontario to be homeless free this year. Yeah. So take a drive to St. Thomas. Knock on the door of the mayor. He is so open to sharing the success stories, and his story starts with, it's Joe Preston. It starts with the answer is yes, and what's the question? And he has 10 counselors that say yes, and what's the question? So they did start with the railway lofts, which is above there on the main street with, I think it is 12 or 15, with a high intensity people to help people with severe levels of mental health and addictions. And right behind that, on the parking lot behind the main street, which is what led us to look at the Victoria Street parking lot, is where their second build was. And that is a 50-unit or thereabouts apartment building with a fire truck bay at the end of it because they needed a fire truck downtown. And so they collaborated and used the parking lot for the apartment and the fire truck. And if you drive by, there are no cars in their parking lot. It's empty. It's a whole empty parking lot. But that was before the bylaw changes. And from there, now they're in the Balaclava School, which is an old school, kind of like OLM or one of those beautiful old schools that they're building, I think 30 units in the school and then a separate apartment building on the site with another 30 or 40 units. So, and all different levels of supportive housing. So not everybody needs a whole bunch, but without some support may not make it successfully in their journey. So even just paying your bills, knowing when to get your medication, simple things, getting up for work in the morning. With the best of intentions, these people sometimes, these individuals need those individual supports. So it does vary. The other community that's really important, that is where their springboard was, I took over.
You did. and there were a couple of other hands up too.
I just given a bit of the more of the down to earth piece of it. Woodstock's Harvey Woods loft was their very first supportive housing build of any magnitude. And I've been there several times, and it is phenomenal. And it is in the downtown core in one of the most beautiful neighborhoods with those stately mansions, kind of like the great big ones out in Petrolia, they're really big. And it is integrated into that community, fantastic. They don't have issues, and that's kind of what we're trying to battle here, is the stigma that has been attached to Indwell inappropriately. And if you have the time, and I think there's a few retirees in here, get together, go for a drive, have lunch in St. Thomas or Woodstock, and visit Indwell's properties. They know how important it is to all of our communities that we find solutions to these challenges. So sorry about that. That's me blah, 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 blah.
Nick?
So, 2 questions. The first one may be easy. I know there's a resolution at this week's council meeting about council doing the Committee of Adjustments work and not going to the Committee of Adjustments. That's one. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? And number 2, mental health is a big part of that. I know the mayor says housing, 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 and that's what you're saying. But there is a mental health component to this. Is Canadian Mental Health taking their share of what should be done? Because there has to be some input for people's mental health, or the housing. Yes, they're housed, but there's still a problem.
So, yeah.
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, so going to count the motion that was put forward this week by one of the councillors to take the work of the Committee of Adjustments back to council for a resolution is inappropriate and may not be even legal, because there are, in the Provincial Municipal Act, there are certain responsibilities that council have, and dealing with bylaw and Committee of Adjustment work is not part of the council. So it's inappropriate at best.
I said, was it good or bad?
It's bad.
Okay.
And I don't, personally, I don't know, I've been reading a lot this weekend on the different opinions there, but I don't think it stands a chance personally, but it's bad. Yeah. Yes.
And the other
No,
question?
I'm sorry. I'm going to have to
Cut us off.
hope that you can stay, have coffee. I know
Yeah.
people at home won't get to hear these. Thank you so much.
I just want to say there are brochures at the back, some pamphlets, and so take some things with you too. And we'll talk. Thank you.